Hello, 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 everyone. It's Amanda with the Content Marketing Institute. Thank you for joining us once again for today's live stream. And you can find us here pretty much every Monday at noon. Today's live stream is Ask the CMWorld community / Ask the CMI team. We have such a great team as well as a great community of influencers and experts. And we want to share all of their awesome experience and insight with you on all of our live streams. If you don't know what the Content Marketing Institute does, we are the leading training and education organization for all things content marketing. You can find more at contentmarketinginstitute.com. And we run two really fabulous events. We have our Content Tech Summit, which is actually coming up very quickly here, June 8th through the 10th. And you can find out more and register at content.tech. And of course, we have our signature event, Content Marketing World, and this one's going to be online and in person. That's September 28th through October 1st, and you can find more on that at contentmarketingworld.com. All right, so if you are joining us, you know the drill. If you join us every week, so drop me a line, let us know where you are joining us from. Say hi. We love to hear from all of you. Of course, Monina is chatting with us. So thanks, Mo, for joining us. So everyone else, please let us know, say hi. Today, we are chatting about video marketing strategy. Over the last year, we've all been, at least I have, right? All been holed up in our homes. And there, of course, has been an explosion in video consumption, right? But as a marketer, are you taking advantage of all those eyeballs? Are you creating videos that are hitting the mark, or are they falling flat? Well, today we have a very special guest who's going to offer some advice on the art and science of producing videos that are relevant, purposeful, and strategic. All right, I see lots of you checking in already. We have Ebony from Birmingham in the UK. Someone's joining us from Boston, Indonesia, South Florida. Hello, everyone. Slovenia, France, Helsinki. Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for joining us today. And before I introduce our guest, let's talk about our question of the day. What about your video marketing strategy? Do you have one? Have you been creating more videos like everybody else? If so, what kind of videos are you creating? Are they working? Are they hitting the mark? Let us know. We'd love to hear from you today. More folks are checking in. Indonesia, India. So great to see you guys all. Indianapolis. All right, let's get to today's guest. He's a sought-after consultant, best-selling author, keynote speaker, and one of the world's most recognized experts in digital content strategy and marketing. He also happens to be the chief strategy advisor at the Content Marketing Institute. He's the one and only Robert Rose. Hello, Robert. Thank you for joining us.
Well, it's really nice to be here. And how cool is it that there are all these people from all over the world signing? I mean, that's
so cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I'm psyched to be here. This is new for me. So I'm all in. This is awesome.
Well, thank you for joining us. And Robert's in California. I'm in Ohio. So we have Michigan, Florida, Portugal. So some of those are a little more exotic than where we are today.
Well, yeah.
Well, the reason we are
exotic
chatting
in Cleveland, let's just be, we won't go there this morning.
Right. So the reason we're chatting with Robert today is because he hosts, produces, and edits a new video show for CMI called Marketing Makers. And on top of that, in a former life, I believe you were a script writer. So you really know your stuff when it comes to video.
Well, I don't know how much I would claim to know. I mean, I think like most of us out there, we're all sort of feeling our way through this world of digital video. But yes, I've been around. I mean, I started my whole career in television, and as you mentioned, I was a screenwriter for about 10 minutes before I quickly realized what a horrible business that is to get into, and then quickly found marketing. And I'm super actually psyched that so much of what we do these days as marketing is to create wonderful content. And now so much of it is video.
Right. Right. Well, like I mentioned, the pandemic forced everyone to sort of stay at home, right? So video production was forced to change. What video marketing trends are you loving lately, and what are the changes that you think in the landscape are gonna last even as we sort of kind of get back to normal?
Yeah. I think the biggest trend that I see out there that is really awesome is how many marketers, and this goes for entrepreneurs and people that are really in that sort of creator economy, are leaning into the idea of stuff to binge watch, right? So whether that's sort of taking a lesson from the Netflix and Disney Pluses and, well, I mean, all the plus networks these days, and really creating shows, creating narratives that have, longer arcs, that have longer times to get involved with them. And I think this is certainly something that's come out of lockdown, is sort of taking a bit of a slower cadence approach to video, a little more highly produced, if you will. And a lot of that is because we've been locked up in our own little studios for so long, and all of that, and aren't able to get outside and do some of the more selfie driven, quick hit types of video that were popular in the early days. And I think the trend toward more longer, deeper, and meaningful shows, if you will, that can be binge watched over time, is a trend that I absolutely love. And I think the trend that I think is going to stay is sort of, a sub part of that, which is what we're doing right now, which is the more, let's maybe not highly produced, but certainly more than just getting two people together, on a FaceTime call and then recording that, but rather more, sort of scheduled programming that is live and that is in a studio kind of setting, interview setting, that I see lasting well beyond what we see now as we come out of lockdown.
If you're just joining us, we are talking about video marketing strategy with Robert Rose. If you have any questions for him, of course, we look for your questions. Leave them in the comments and we will hopefully get to them. Well, with so much video content out there, not only on brands' own channels, but of course across every social media platform out there, how can content teams make sure their videos get noticed, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first thing is, and this is a point that often gets made, but I think can't get made too much, which is the ironic thing about videos that I find that really get noticed, that really work, is how good the sound is. And that's a really important thing, because there are two things that happen right now in video, which is, one, people watch it without sound, right? So having some level of, text or transcription or those kinds of things available, especially as you start to, maybe not in the live setting, but certainly in, once you start to put out a lot of recorded video, so that people can get the meaning of it without sound. But when you're really using sound, when you're really sort of putting video out there, having good sound is one of the most important aspects of a video that gets noticed. Poor sound and people will turn it off no matter what the content is. The second thing is, and this might be, I don't know if this is provocative or not, but I'm a big believer in, it needs to look good. I know there's a whole trend out there that says, nah, you can just turn your cell phone around and do a selfie and it's fine and it's going to be great. As long as you're saying something interesting, people will listen and notice. I don't have any numbers on this. I don't have any empirical data to show this, but I believe I have, in sort of my belief set, is you really need to focus in on making it look good, right? So that means good editing. It means good lighting. It means good, focus. And it means not just sort of throwing anything up, but it means actually doing things of high production quality, or at least not horrible production quality, if that makes sense.
And I think the tools are getting so much easier, simpler to use.
Oh,
So
sure.
I think that makes it a little bit easier to do these days.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
also,
I
I
mean, even
think that, go ahead.
not terribly challenging.
I also think when the videos that are the videos that are doing that make it look like it's like on the fly or whatever are really probably like highly produced videos to make it look like it's on the fly or look like it's, something they just did, right?
Yeah. No, exactly right. It's the kind of thing where, you can really make something look, I mean, highly produced does not necessarily mean it, the Casey Neistat was always really good at this, right? His stuff is very highly produced and well put together, but it doesn't actually look big budget, if that's the right way to phrase
Right.
it.
That's a stylistic thing, I guess, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, let's get a little bit sort of into the workflow or technical part. When you're writing or working on a video, do you script every video you work on, or do you just work from an outline and go from there? What approach do you recommend for content marketers?
It depends on what I'm doing. Like, this is not scripted, obviously, but as you can probably tell, so there's that. For anything that I'm going to do, like a workshop or a class or the show or a video that I'm going to actually put time and effort into making and producing, yeah, I script everything, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's word for word for word, although in most cases it kind of is. And most of that is because I really want to not have to, quite frankly, fix it in post, which is, of course, the saying when you just like, we'll just make it better. And I'm also not a huge fan of the sort of when, you've got a video and then all of a sudden, and now you're over here and now you're over here, because it's, because you're cutting in based on the fact that you're sort of making stuff up and you have to cut it up. And so I like it to be a continuous, and look as much like a professional news feed or a show as possible. And so I do like to script everything. That doesn't mean I necessarily memorize every script, but I also have, like, just to the right of my camera here, I've set up an old iPhone, and I actually use that as a teleprompter in many cases when I do my produced videos, and that works really well. To me, even having, when I'm on a webinar or I'm on anything, even having some sort of outline of the things that I know I want to hit is important, because I don't want to miss it. And I certainly don't want to have to go back and redo it or those kinds of things. And in most cases, I'm trying to hit time. I'm trying to hit some sort of specific time, like especially when you're doing a keynote or you're doing a presentation and you've got your presentation that you want to give on video and you need it to hit a certain amount of time. It's usually not a question of saying, well, you can be 5 minutes over or 5 minutes under or whatever. You need to hit it pretty much on the mark. And getting a script in gear is really the way to ensure that. And by the way, conference organizers, anybody who's organizing an event with video, or anybody who's taking your online class or anything like that, if you hit the time that you say you're going to hit, people will love you for it.
Absolutely, right? I worked in TV news, so we had to have, right? I had to have the out time exactly right, or I was in big trouble.
Down to the second, right? In TV news, it's down to the second.
Yes, yes. So let's talk a little bit about your home studio, because we were just chatting before about your lighting setup back there and your cool microphone or whatever. So, what sort of basics equipment do you recommend?
Well, I mean, so the basic equipment is different than what I have here for sure. I mean, and this, by the way, is, this is what I call my lockdown special. This has taken a year to put together, quite frankly, and tons of Amazon boxes coming and going, by the way, because for me, I wanted to make it really easy. I wanted to make it an easy setup, an easy way to go along. So I spent more probably than I should have or could have. but I wanted to make it like super easy to control from my computer, et cetera. So here on either side, I've got a couple of what would be traditionally called box lights. I just find that they're better than the ring lights because I wear glasses, and ring lights typically provide a bad reflection. So the box lights give you a nice diffused light. I use here a DSLR camera. It's a Sony. I don't get paid by any of these people, by the way, but just to tell you what it is, Sony DSLR camera that I go through what's called a converter to make it a webcam. And that gives the nice sort of bokeh effect behind me there. And then nobody talks about this. They really don't. But I just started noticing that all the really good YouTubers and all the good people who put together high quality video, they always have some sort of accent lighting behind them. And I was like, why is that? And I finally read into it, and it's because it actually provides a little bit of contrast for you behind your head. So I put in a little bit of accent lighting there in the back. And then, as I mentioned, I've got my little iPhone here, which is a nice, I use as a teleprompter when I'm doing my recording. And then everything else is standard Mac computer stuff.
So Mac editing system you use, right?
That's right. Yeah, I use Final Cut Pro. I just because I learned on that, and so it's that's what I use to sort of put together the videos that I do. I guess I forgot my microphone here, which is a Shure condenser mic, actually. I'm not going to bore everybody with the difference between condenser and dynamic mics, but that's a whole other show we could do.
Well, Donald, when we were talking about that, Donald wants to know, how do you avoid the reading it look? Like you feel like you're reading a script. How do you kind of avoid that? It's
such an important thing. And Donald, I have not mastered that yet. I'm still working on it myself. There's two aspects to that. One is to make sure that your teleprompter is as close to the lens as possible and that you're far enough back from the lens so that you don't have that sort of this kind of thing going on when you're checking. And so if you can look at it and sort of, just give it a little bit of side eye, like I'm looking at it, I have nothing on it right now, but I'm looking at it right now. And it still looks like I'm looking into the camera. The second part is, as you're reading, two pieces to that. One is when you write the script, write it like you talk. Don't read a blog post. In other words, if it is a blog post, or if it's something that you've written previously, like a paper or an article or something, and you want to give it as a video, rewrite it like you would talk. Literally even putting in things like and ah and and pauses. And you can always make those little notations in the script where you want to take a pause, right? And just do stuff like that and really give yourself, and then because it's a performance ultimately. And then knowing the script is the third part, which is really, if you know your script, read it through a couple times, 5 times, whatever, so that you don't have to memorize it, but know it enough so that you can really not have to focus on it. It becomes more of a cue for you than anything else. Those are the 3 tips that I would have.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So I just wrote Robert's intro and all the stuff I have for this. It's basic. It's kind of in an outline, a little bit of a script, but I just kind of go over and over it again. I say it out loud. I always say practice out loud, so you're hearing yourself, what you're saying. I don't know, it'll take a half hour, and so then I kind of know the flow and know how it's going to go. Robert has a separate thing. I just have literally a Word document right underneath my little camera thing on my computer. So I don't know if you can tell I'm reading, but I'm just sort of like trying to stay as close to the camera as I can and just reading from my Word document that I scroll up and down. So that's how I do it.
And there's some really nice and free, by the way, for the most part. You can pay some money for a couple of other features, but there's some really nice apps that you can get for your iPad or your iPhone or even your computer that allow you to control it with a clicker or with a mouse, so that it's a teleprompter, so that it'll scroll for you if you've got something a little longer than a paragraph.
Do those things like scroll, like you have to find the right tempo or whatever? I'm just curious. I remember
and they'll allow you to change the speed. They allow you to change the speed so that you depending on how fast you're reading, et cetera, et cetera. It makes it really quite easy.
I used to be one of those people back in the day who was running the teleprompter and trying to like go back or go forward or slow it down, you know, when they're trying to read it.
It's Ron Burgundy, right? He will read anything you put on the screen.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I've worked with maybe one or two folks like that. I'm not going to name any names, but.
Good night, San Diego.
That was a great movie. So Kim, who is on our CMI team, she's leaving some links to some great our blog posts that Robert has written about script writing for video. So I think she's leaving those on LinkedIn. We'll try to get those up on Facebook as well. Tim is sharing. You can also get a little splitter that projects your phone right in front of your camera. I haven't tried that, but that's good.
Yeah, I haven't tried that yet. I've seen those. I mean, I get retargeted now, of course, as you might expect with all that stuff on social media. So I've been seeing those splitters, and then there's some other little gadgets that you can have that sort of move the camera down. And this is more for sort of your, because like right now I'm looking at the camera, I'm not looking at the live video stream, which is always a weird thing when you're on Zoom calls or you're doing sort of Zoom recordings or anything like that, where you're, if you're looking at the screen, you can definitely tell someone's looking at the screen instead of, giving good direct eye contact to the camera. And there's some doodads now that you can get that actually sort of help that. I haven't played with any of those yet, but I hear they're really interesting.
Yeah, I think that's another great point is to remember to look right at the camera. We're always like, once in a while I look down because you're underneath my script or whatever. So I'm also trying to look at you, but make sure I'm looking at the camera. So that's a great point. Is it feels weird that you're looking at this tiny little dot or whatever, the camera, but it makes a huge difference for sure. All right. Well, Robert, you have given us some super awesome tips and advice today. If you want to reach Robert, he's on Twitter at Robert_Rose, correct?
There you go.
And then the contentadvisory.net. I get that right?
That's right. That's our little home on the wall of the internet. That is for all of our consulting and the things that we do with clients all over the world.
And of course, Robert, like I mentioned, does the Marketing Makers video show, which he just started this year. It's super awesome. I believe we have another episode coming up this week as well.
We do. Episode 5 on Wednesday. Yeah.
We have the link below. You can also find it if you go to contentmarketinginstitute.com and click on shows. I believe it's right there. So be sure to check it out. So thank you so much, Robert, for joining us for your first Ask the CMWorld team.
I'm really, really excited for this. I'm so glad that everybody can. I'm so psyched to see how many people from around the world. It's so great to see the community coming together. So yeah, thanks everybody for staying up late for some of you, and for others of you sort of hanging out here in the morning.
All right. So everyone, we will see you here. I will see you here next Monday at noon for another Ask the CMWorld community. Have a great week, everyone. Bye.